What's going on, Prompt Family? It's your boy Don Digital, back with another video, and I'm with my brother Marquiste, Mr. Side Hustle Mentor. How you doing today, bro?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Always is a good day when we can sit down and talk about some AI stuff that's happening in the world here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree. And I know normally we do a lot of hands-on, in-depth trainings, but today, man, I just wanted to get your input, on an article I found in regards to AI, the regulations, and Trump potentially taking it from, state regulations to federal regulations as well. So I found some dope articles on like CNN, USA Today, the New York Times. I mean, it's everywhere. And I think it's just an important topic that we highlight, for our community and also people, on social media and in the YouTube world. So what you think, bro?
Super important in this. I think it's very timely because I was just talking when we were doing like our state elections recently. I was like, man, I don't see anything like any sorts of AI resemblance on any of these types of bills that we're looking at right now for this particular year. So I'm always just thinking in the back of my mind that it's obviously coming, that the regulations need to happen. I didn't see anything this year. And now just a couple of weeks later here, we've got this huge news where they're really trying to take the regulations completely just from the state level and saying, nope, we're doing all this at the federal level. So you don't even have to worry about seeing on your state ballots for any of your state officials. It's all going to be at the federal level. So it'd be pretty cool to see. So you can definitely pull up one of those articles because I've seen so many of them pop up that I want to just dive in and really get to the good stuff.
All right, people. So this is live, fresh off the press. We see that Trump says he'll sign an executive order blocking state AI regulations despite safety fears. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're just the everyday American, grinding hard, working your 9 to 5, like these type of rules and regulations affect all of us. Now, Queese, I don't know what side of the spectrum you're on in regards to the state level or the federal level. I'm kind of conflicted because I can kind of see it both ways, right? And we'll talk through it as we go. But in this article, I did find some things that really stood out to me. And I'll kind of go over those really, really quick. But just to kind of start it off, just for context, so Trump is pretty much saying, and I believe this was a tweet right here, that there must be only one rule book if we're going to continue to lead in AI, right? Just that one sentence alone just tells me like how ambitious he is in regards to AI and the United States being the leading force. We already know like China, they've been kicking our butts, when it comes to the AI race and innovation and things of that nature. And we know that in the future, especially finishing out this decade, like the country that leads with AI is going to lead the future, right? And not just AI, just other technologies in general. So I think that Trump, he's just trying to get ahead of it by pushing these regulations on the federal level.
Yeah, and it's a very powerful statement when you think about it because that's why you say you can kind of look at it from both sides of the fence, right? It's like anything that you're doing, the more people that you have involved with it, the more longer time it usually may take to get a decision made. In some cases, you may not get a decision made at all, or you may have different decisions to where in over here the decision is this, but then over here the decision is that. But at the end of the day, I'm still the same American. So it's like I can see it from that standpoint. It's like if I go here, it works this way. If I go here, it works that way. Very similar and strangely enough to use this as an analogy, but just how recreational marijuana is in the United States, right?
Good
Is
point.
where it's not like a federally mandated thing to where as long as I'm a United States citizen, I can smoke the tree wherever I go in the country. No, if I go to this state, it's all good, possibly. You go to this state, it ain't so good. You're going to be, ready to go behind bars somewhere. So just even looking at it at that standpoint, you can kind of understand why it's hard for me to say I can't agree with the federal level just because of something like that, just with just using it medical and also the recreational marijuana as an example to where it can get really muddy and cluster when you're having to have all these different policies and I'm the same person as a United States citizen.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a great analogy and a great point as well. So, and that's kind of why I'm just conflicted about it, man. Because like on one side of the spectrum, right, for entrepreneurs, small business owners, it could benefit you a lot, right? If there's just one rule book to follow, it makes your compliance a lot easier, especially if you're a business that operates in multiple different states. But from a consumer standpoint, kind of to your point with the medical marijuana, some of these states have laws and regulations to protect their citizens, right? So like we know that we see it with apps like Sora. and these other like deep fake type of platforms, or I should say not platforms, but platforms that have the possibility to have deep fakes, right? So like you have certain states that have laws to protect their citizens around that, or like discrimination in the workplace, or with housing and real estate. So like I feel like if you put that on the federal level, right, and then you have somebody like Trump that's ambitious with having the United States become the number one force. I'm just not sure like how those regulations will become on the federal level in regards to protecting the citizens. So it's like I'm kind of conflicted because I kind of see it both ways. But I'm all for the United States being the number one force because again, it'll benefit us in the long run. It's just short term. I'm not sure like how the everyday citizen will be affected. By
Yeah, it is a race right now. I was just reading an article the other day where China was suspected of importing illegal chips into the country just so they can
all that.
continue to power things when they shouldn't even have access to these chips. So countries are doing things right now that probably they don't want to be publicly known in this AI arms race. And so that's a really good example of why he said we should have one rule book, because if we have 50 different rule books for the states,
Yep.
then we're going to probably be making a lot slower perceived progress than other countries who are just rapidly trying to get things done as fast as possible. So it's like you see it both sides, but if you do see it from the side of that the federal should be making the policy, you just want to be able to see more transparency with that. And
Mhm.
also just collaboration with the members of Congress to make sure that it isn't just our way or the highway, but it does feel like there is some collaboration and transparency for the good of all the states.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good point, man. And I think a lot of people, or a lot of American citizens, I should say, consumers, I think that's where the fear is too. When you put it on the federal level, is that now you kind of have big tech versus the American citizens. You know what I mean? Like you have these huge conglomerates, these billion and trillion dollar companies that are essentially going to be, I mean, let's just be real, they're going to be influencing, if not writing the rule books, right?
Mhm.
So now it just comes down to the conversation of it. You made a really good point is, transparency. So like, for example, I know certain states like Colorado, some of them use AI for like underwriting and real estate deals, right? But I believe, and you can fact check me on this, I believe in Colorado, they have to do either like quarterly or annual audits of their AI algorithms, right? So to your point of transparency, this is on the state level where they're forcing, real estate companies, underwriters and things of that nature to become compliant, to be transparent in how they use their AI and their algorithms to protect citizens from discrimination. So I
Mhm.
think when you put that type of power at the federal level, again, I'm all for us being the number one leaders. I think it's going to create more opportunities for everyone. But you made a great point in saying transparency. If we can have that level of transparency and compliance on the federal level, then I'm all game. You know what I mean? But I just know it's like it's a slippery slope when it comes to that. And then also in states like I believe it's New York, some companies use AI like during the hiring process. But again, they have
Mhm.
transparency, they have compliance, they have regulations in place to help ensure that the everyday citizen isn't being discriminated against. You know what I mean? So again, if they brought that to the federal level, I would hope that they would just keep that same kind of structure as well to protect the everyday citizen.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I think that if one state has a regulation, it should be looked at it that all states should be able to have a similar regulation. So if maybe it should be something that's federally controlled, because it's like, why would one state have a regulation around AI and another state not have it around it?
Good point.
When at the end of the day, it's just technology and then we're citizens using it. So for instance, there's one particular state, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I think they completely has like outlawed like AI robocalls because
Mm.
so many robocalls were made during the election. People got upset and it became like basically now policy that AI calls can't even be utilized anymore. But you don't want to have that particular mindset to say that's going to be for all states. So I think it has to be, we need that to look at it as the good of the whole instead of just trying to look at every state and we're trying to have our own particular policies, because then I feel like we're clustered and we're supposed to be the United States of America.
True.
And that means that the regulations should be as similar as possible when it comes to stuff like that. I think it's just kind of silly to where, like for instance, like once they say, oh, we're outlawing ChatGPT. Oh, I can't use ChatGPT in the state. It's like, well, why does that make sense? And now it almost feels like the states are becoming like little dictators versus the government being a dictator. But if the government is going to have the control, I just once again said I think that it needs to be for the good of the country, transparent and collaboration at all levels of kind of creating this stuff and turning it into policies
Yeah.
versus them just coming back with a long list of things that says, this is what we came back with, guys, and this is the rule of book that everybody has to follow now. And there was
Yeah.
no collaboration, there was no transparency into that process.
Yeah, man, that's such a good point, man. And as you were speaking, just another example, kind of like the medical marijuana one, is like sports gambling, right? So like I'm originally from Philly, and in PA, you can gamble, FanDuel, Prize Picks, whatever the case may be. But now, in the state of Florida, like you can't use FanDuel. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
other states are like that as well, and it makes it a little bit confusing as to like, why and how, and just opens up all these other questions, and it can be a little frustrating as well. And like to your point, if I'm used to using ChatGPT for my business, but then there's a state that doesn't allow it, it kind of just hinders you. You know what I mean? It throws a whole wrench into the operations. I definitely understand that perspective as well. And then here in the article, and this is exactly what you just said too, bro. So like, this is Sam Altman. He pretty much argued that navigating a patchwork of state regulations could slow down innovation and affect America's competitiveness in a global AI race, which they say will have implications for the economy and national security. So that's exactly what you just said, bro. It's like
Yeah.
having to go through all of these different states to get approvals and things of that nature and reviews and everything. It'll just slow down the process. Versus, I don't know how China operates, but if they're just at the federal level in China, then yeah, how can you compete with that if they can get things passed and approved way quicker versus having to go through 50 different states to, kind of try to get the same exact result. So I think that's super key as well. And then right here is a perspective kind of from the state level. So stripping states of jurisdiction to regulate AI is a subsidy to big tech and will prevent states from protecting against online censorship of political speech, predatory applications that target children, violations of intellectual property rights, and data center intrusions on power/water sources. So again, that's just another point as well in regards to taking it from the state level to the federal level. I think overall, there's a lot of fear in putting too much power in the government's hand, which has always been a thing, since
So it's always been a thing for sure, and you
Mhm.
understand why. It's just having that fearlessness or that loss of control of things or whatnot. But some of these things, I don't think that it should prevent the states from being protected. Like something like protecting against piracy, not piracy, but Can you scroll back up a little bit? Let's see here. Yeah, so some of these things I don't think should be something that would be an issue for states that they'll feel like they lose access or control to, like predatory applications that target children. I mean, I think that's something that should just be universal, right?
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
that
Yep.
it should be something that only one state should implement. I think something like that is a universal thing. I don't think that's giving up control to big tech. I think that's where that transparency comes from. It's like this is just something that's just to me common sense that we all should follow, that we shouldn't be having any type of predatory applications to target children. I don't care if you live in Michigan or Florida. I
Yep.
mean, it should be something like that. It would be the same. I understand certain things, like he talks about, data intrusions on power or resources, because now that stuff is getting a little bit more localized.
Yep.
Some states don't have as much space as other states. Some states may not be able to get as much kickback from the government coming in there. So that's where I can kind of see where it's like maybe the states may not be getting as much money and also may not have as much control. So money and control, I can see being a factor on the state side by giving up and letting the government handle the regulations.
Yep. Nah, beautifully said, bro. Beautifully said. And then the last thing I want to highlight, and I believe this is the last paragraph, and this kind of sums up the whole entire conversation that we're having. But it says we're in a fight to determine who will benefit from AI, either big tech CEOs or the American people, right? And then it goes on to say we cannot afford to spend the next decade with big tech in the driver's seat, steering us towards massive job losses, surveillance, pricing algorithms that jack up the cost of living, and data centers that are skyrocketing home energy bills. So to your point, man, I think there are certain things, right, that certain areas or states will be affected. So, like you said, the power sources, the water sources, right? All the data centers, like that's going to be a huge topic that we're going to start hearing about, I think, starting next year and beyond, or all the different states. We see it happening in Texas with the huge data centers being implemented, which will drive up the power costs and things like that. But I do think that if on a federal level we can have, like, again, the level of transparency, and it really does have the U.S. citizens' best interests in mind, then I think it only makes sense to do it on the federal level, right? Why have all these different laws and regulations when it comes to, like you said, protecting children? Like, these things should all be universal. And I think it just makes it easier going forward if we want to, be the leading force in AI, continue to innovate, and things of that nature. And the last thing I'm going to say is, right, this is the whole purpose of the community that we created, right? It's so that not only do you know how to build these things, right, but you also understand what's going on in regards to government policies and things of that nature. I'm not saying that we're the experts or anything like that, but you have to be educated when it comes to things like this. If not, it's just going to be, you're going to be blindly following things that you may not believe in, or you just don't know what's going on in the first place. So I think, like, this article kind of just highlights, I mean, essentially what we've been talking about from day one in regards to just AI and just being well adversed, and educated on what the heck is going on when it comes to AI and tech.
Yeah, because this news affects everyone, from top to bottom, and also this stuff is happening so fast. That's why we wanted to have this community where we can discuss this stuff in almost near as real time as possible, because these things make you have to make decisions. Like what companies you're gonna keep your stocks in, and where you're gonna end up living if it depend. Say for instance, if the states did get control and you lived in a state where it was super restricted, that's something that now affects you. You're going to have to think about those types of things. So that's why we want to bring this to you early, so you're not just kind of hit out the blue one day and play, oh man, all this stuff is changing. No, you hear in the prompt, you get this news, fast.
Yep. I agree. And listen, man, I'll just end it with this. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. Are you on the side of Trump and the government, where you want to, put everything on a federal level, or do you want to keep the power in the states' hands, give more, power and control to the U.S. citizens? I'm kind of conflicted, as you can see. Please, I see where you stand, bro, and honestly, I respect it, man, because I honestly see, you know what I mean, like your perspective and your point of view, and I think it's dope. I'm kind of conflicted. I understand both sides. But again, man, if you guys want more content like this, if you want to learn how to leverage AI and build different tools, to help benefit your business, your family, your life, me and Marquise, we created a community called The Prompt, where we discuss things like this, but we're more hands on. We build things together. It's just a dope environment for entrepreneurs and small business owners who want to leverage AI and get ahead of the AI race. So if you're interested in that, there will be a link here. You can DM us, you can comment, whatever the case may be, and we hope to see you guys inside the community.
Yep. Thank you for watching this video. This is not the last one. Stay tuned, and we'll see you on the inside. Peace out.
Peace.